Hi, this is Mashnu with another example from the book Art of Attack in Chess, and I chose this one because it's actually very different than the first one that I showed you in my previous video. In that one we saw this beautiful combination with a sacrifice on f6 and a very heavy attack on the opponent's king, and this one is from a game that was played at Capablanca with black pieces against William Winter in 1929. And what I find beautiful about this example is that it combines tactical threats with positional and endgame aspects. Let's have a look at the position. What we see here is, first of all, this beautiful diagonal, and also a half-open g-file. Okay, so White is missing his g2 pawn. That makes his king so vulnerable. There is no way to hide for his king. We also see these two isolated pawns on h2 and f4. Those can become weak. What black would like to do is to have a rook on the g-file. I mean, just imagine that in this position it would be possible to play g5, and after f takes g5, rook takes g5 check, black would win the game. Simple. But now the problem is that after g5, White has rook to g2, and then this pawn on g5 is pinned because our king is on g8, and suddenly the idea of opening this g-file fails. So what Capablanca did was something very subtle, and that is preparing the attack by first moving his king to h8. King h8 is what he did. And White of course saw that now the serious threat was to play g5 by black, because now this pin is not longer possible. So what White did is he played h4, preventing g5. So in that sense, a good defense. But now we see that the pawn on h4 is undefended. So White had to admit a new weakness in order to prevent the black threat g5. And black played here rook to h5. After rook to g2, he didn't take on h4, he went back to f5, and this may sound strange because now White plays rook to f2 and we have the same position again. And yes, it is a bit strange, but if I tell you that this is move 36, maybe we start understanding that it probably had to do with the fact that they were reaching the time control on move 40. So repeating these moves is maybe caused by time trouble. So they wanted to reach the 40th move, and then they get extra time, extra thinking time, and then they can continue. What black did here is he played queen to d6. So he's putting more pressure on the weakness, one of the weaknesses of White. And White played queen to e3, defending f4. And now comes black's idea. He plays queen to d8, so he's actually now attacking this h4 pawn and offering to trade it for this e6 pawn. And White accepted this. He took on e6, and queen takes h4 was followed. So now we have not only an open g-file, we have an open h-file as well. So rook to h5 could be a very strong threat, and that's what happened in the game after queen to e3, because White also had to take care of this pawn on f4 that is attacked 3 times, so he needs to be defended. So queen to e3 to defend it, and now rook to h5. So what Capablanca is doing beautifully is he's combining the two weaknesses of White, the pawn on f4 and the weakness around the king. Now rook to g2 was played to give the king some air so he can escape to f2 because black was threatening to give checkmate on h1. Now queen to h1 was played anyway, king to f2, and now queen to h3. So black is understanding very well that he doesn't need to win the game in a few moves. If the queens go off now, he will have a one pawn endgame. If queen takes h3, then rook takes h3, and we see these two pawns on c3 and f4 both attacked and undefended. So one of those two pawns would fall, and after, for example, rook to c1, rook takes f4 check, we have a one pawn, a rook ending for black with these two connected pass pawns on h7 and g6. And we know that Capablanca was one of the best endgame players in chess history. So he played this queen h3 with the idea of telling his opponent, I'm not in a hurry to win this game. And white played queen to g3, and now Capablanca continued putting pressure and having some tactical threats. He played queen to e6. The threat is rook to h3, and after the queen goes away, for example, to g5, then there is queen e3 checkmate. So Capablanca saw this mate pattern with a queen on e3, and to prevent this, white played king to g1, and now Capablanca simply took on c4. Rook to e1 followed, and now queen to f7, again attacking this f4 point. It must be defended, so rook to f2, and black plays rook to f5, so putting more pressure now on this f4 pawn. White defends it with rook to e4, and now we see the move where it actually all began. It began with the move, the threat g5, and that's what Capablanca played here, g5, attacking the f4 pawn one more time. And it's now impossible to avoid, for white, to avoid losing this pawn on f4. So here white resigned. He didn't want to go into this terrible endgame, and he resigned. So that's what I actually find so nice about this example, that Capablanca is constantly playing with different weaknesses of the opponent. So he's on one hand using the fact that the pawns of white are weak, but on the other hand also that the position of the king of white is weak. So combining these two aspects, threatening tactical ideas, but also being open for the possibility of entering a one endgame, that's what makes him so this example so beautiful, I think. Alright, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time on YouTube. Goodbye. Oh, just one more thing, because I see that I still have about 1.5 minutes in this video to before I reach the maximum. There is a position when there was also another tactical idea there, and that was here. Instead of queen to e6, there was also a tactical way to play, and that was rook takes f4 check, because if queen takes f4, now rook f5 wins the queen, and we enter into this endgame. That is also much better for black because of these two passed pawns. But Capablanca decided not to go into this idea, but to play his own game by playing queen to e6 here, and continue this cat and mouse play of attacking the f4 pawn. Okay, that's it, and now I have reached the maximum length of the video. Goodbye.